they're going to ask you, well, how are you going to use the money? Okay, so what I do is I have a separate slide. Now, you know, you could combine, you could incorporate use of proceeds in your financial dashboard, but what I've noticed visually, it's tight. If you're trying to show a 3-year projection, you're trying to explain, you know, the numbers and the contribution margin, and then you're also associating that with cash flow, in and out, direct method, then it's just simpler to have a separate slide. So I'm a big believer in separating use of proceeds, because on the use of proceeds, just so you know, I don't always just include that all the time, because it's more detailed. So it all depends on who you are presenting to, okay? But on use of proceeds, it's basically like, how are you going to use the money I give you? If I'm giving you $2 million, now explain to me, how are you going to use that money? And so you can break it down. I mean, on use of proceeds, I have a very nice, sweet looking visual where I would, for instance, I break it down into marketing, okay? And in there I include sales. Or I may not, it depends on the business, so I may separate it. If sales is truly different, of course sales is, and marketing is, theoretically sales is part of marketing, but tell that to the salesperson, okay? That brings in all the money while the marketing people are producing brochures and campaigns. I'm being a little sarcastic because I love both functions, but usually from a cost perspective, you want to separate them. So sales, if anything, you want to combine business development and marketing, because business development is really marketing. Usually, I've heard entrepreneurs tell me that business development is people that can't sell. Okay, so that's kind of cruel, but this is what some of the people, great salespeople, have told me in the marketplace. But you know, you basically separated marketing, development, okay, ops, operations. You could combine infrastructure. And this is the part what really irritates me. Make it simple, summarize it. Okay, if you send me a spreadsheet in here, like for instance, I've seen entrepreneurs put a spreadsheet in there and they'll give you the cost and all that, and this is one of the things they'll say. Marketing is $88,934.15. Seriously? You put that number in? $88,934.15. Please, I beg you, okay? Consolidate it, okay? And I think second grade, you know, you kind of round the numbers. So make it 88,950 as an example. Round it off a little bit. I mean, come on. I'm not going to expect you to get it to a penny. And if you do get it to me to a penny, I'm going to wonder why you gave it to me in a penny, okay? Or dimes and nickels. Okay, and by the way, as a venture capitalist, I've learned this the hard way. I've seen entrepreneurs count pennies, nickels and dimes, but lose thousands. Think about that statement what I just said. Yeah, they're counting nickels, pennies, dimes, but they're losing thousands. So, you know, believe me, I believe in efficiency. I believe in being frugal. I believe in really being a financial control freak when it comes to spending the money. But with the same token, watch for those thousands and Benjamin. $100 and thousands are the ones that get you into trouble. Really wasn't going to talk about that, but I did anyway. So make it simply visually appealing. Usually how I have it is a nice little graphs, bars like that, going horizontal with the numbers separate. Okay, so marketing, development, ops, infrastructure, you know, management. Okay, so just round them up. And then one of the things that I do is I actually have a reserve. I actually have a thing called reserve. Okay, so what I do in there is like for instance on one of the deals, it was for $3 million. Okay, the use of proceeds. And in there I allocated $600,000 reserve. Okay, now, why I do that? Well, you know what? Been enough startups, funded enough startups, and know fully well that startups will go through their roller coaster rides, and unexpected events will happen. The good news is that you can expect that the unexpected event is going to happen, where it takes off a few thousands from your use of proceeds program. So what happens is you want to allocate some reserve for your startup, and smart entrepreneurs do that. And I can tell you, I funded one for millions of dollars, and when he showed me, they already had money in the bank, and when he showed me the two accounts, I said, well, what's that account? And he said, that's the reserve account. I'm like, that's a smart entrepreneur. He has a reserve account just in case something goes bad. So you want to do that. You want to do the use of proceeds. And then on this side, I once again may use a nice little chart, bar chart, just with revenues. Make it simple, make it exciting. Year 1, year 2. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is that when you're doing these graphs and charts, make them, like I said, visually appealing. Also identify them. As an investor, I don't want to have to spend way too much time trying to figure out your chart. So if year 1 is 25 million, and even though you have your X, Y, and Z units, you may want to put 25, you want to put 50 here, highlight it, and then 100 here, just for a quick reference. So you kind of make it kind of look exciting and cool. And then if you do it that way, you can also, as an investor, see the growth that way. So I'm a big believer in visually appealing startup pitch presentations for investors. And now we're going to talk about the business model. It's one of my favorite slides, and I keep it for last. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'm very shy about showing the entire business model for the startups we're launching. They're in the stealth mode, okay? But you should have a business model handy. And what I want to talk to you about is the business model slide, in my opinion, should be very visually appealing. And if you see some of my slides on business model, it looks really cool, really sweet. Because I actually use the concepts from thermodynamics. There was a professor at SME, his name was Dr. J.P. Holman, and literally he could diagram any power plant to you, whether it was a nuclear plant, it was a natural gas plant, or coal-fired energy plant, power plant. He could diagram the entire workings of it by using simple boxes, and it was really cool. So thermodynamics is one of my favorite courses, and so I've kind of grown fond of his way of modeling. And to me, a startup is, you could look at startup as an energy plant. Input goes in, there's some work done, and output is, of course, in one direction is you're generating profits. In another direction, you're generating happy customers. So on your business model, you want to be very careful, okay, what you say. I did an interview with a startup company out of New York, and their name is NewsCred, and they're a very cool startup company. And one of the things I talk about in this article is the nuance of the business model. So what I learned from interviewing them, because one of my favorite things to do is look at business models from different sectors and startups. But when I interviewed them, I realized that the foundation and the framework of your business model was very simple, but it was the nuance that made it so cool. And so obviously when you have when you're doing a business model, like I said, Professor Holman, actually I think he was PhD, is that you have an input. Okay, so think of this as your startup, okay? So you're going to do certain work on it, okay? And so usually the revenue streams, okay, are going to go through the box. So what you're going to most likely do is, there's 4 revenue vectors, okay? You've got, no matter how people slice it or dice it, I've kind of thought about this for a while. You've got the advertising vector, okay? You've got the transaction vector, okay? And you've got the subscription vector, and then you have the usage vector. Okay, so if you look at any company, any startup, pretty much the revenue vectors are those four. So for instance, now you may ask, well, what freemium? Freemium is a separate vector. No, not really, because freemium is really advertising. If you're giving away a product for customers to use, whether it's a shampoo or a Dropbox service, then it's still freemium, okay? It's free, so it's considered under the advertising model. So what's going to happen is you want to talk about some of the revenue vectors you're going to use. And of course, like for instance, a business model of LinkedIn is really cool because they use subscription. They're not kicking in with advertising, and they made money on like services of linking the members to the employment agents and so on. So they used also the transactional component of it as well. So from my perspective, I'm okay with you telling me I plan on making money in the advertising and sponsorship, or I plan on making money using the combination. So like a Dropbox model is where you get the service for free. It's a freemium model. So now at a certain point of usage, I'm going to pay you a monthly service charge if it's Dropbox. So my point is that's okay, but be very careful like the intricacies of how things are played out within any of these revenue vectors. And also the business model is not just about the revenue vectors, it's also about how the company operates a business. So there's more to it, but I can tell you that quite a few entrepreneurs, when I ask them what their business model is, they really don't give me a very good answer what it is. So try to make it visual. So for instance, if I have customers here, C1, C2, C3, okay, then I'm gonna also put here that it's gonna be freemium, and that also could be a subscription based. Okay, so I'm gonna wanna talk about the evolution of the business model too. And I think perfect example is Netflix, how they went, for instance, from being they were still direct to consumer, but they went from being an analog company of delivering the videos to you through the postal service to doing a streaming and becoming a digital based company. So there's a lot to the business model, but I can tell you that on your business model, either do not include it at first, or if you do include it, keep it enough where the investor understands which direction you're going to, but I would not give the details. I'm strongly against it. In fact, after funding so many companies, on one of the presentations, I sent one of my dear friends in Silicon Valley the presentation, and he came back to me, he's like, where's your business model? I don't see it. And I'm like, yeah, that would be correct. And I'm like, dude, I mean, I've funded quite a few companies, and I can tell you that I'm very shy about just issuing out a business model presentation, a slide, when I don't know who is going to see it. And so we went through it and I explained to him the business model, and he liked it. But my point is, be very shy about the business model. Your business model is like one of the key core assets, and if you got something innovative, then you want to keep it to yourself. I mean, look at, for instance, the example of the business model of Google. The way they've gone about attacking the search advertising sector is very innovative, and that in itself was the innovation. So all those slides come down to, and what you can do is you can change the flow of them, okay? And after this, you go to the appendix. And the appendix is what you include different types of support materials for any of the slides that you already have. And of course, at the end, what you want to include is, as I said, and we went through it, is your back cover, where you include your contact name, all the basic elements that people talk about. And as I said to you, and I beg you, and I warned you once, and I'll warn you again, don't put a big thank you. Do not write on your last slide, thank you, okay? And don't put a happy face, okay? It just ruins the image of what you're trying to do, okay? I already know you're thanking me as we finish this presentation. That's about it. And I don't need you to thank me, okay? Just hopefully you learned something from this.